microphone.
Lydia's on the, is she on the phone?
Great. I'll check. Well, good evening and welcome to the August 13, 2019 Federal Way City Council meeting. Before we get started, actually, City Clerk, is Miss Councilmember Asefa Dawson with us via phone?
I am.
Hi, Lydia. How are you? All right. Thank you for joining us, Lydia. Okay. With that, would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Great to see everybody here. So the first thing we'll do is the proclamation for the 2020 census, momentous endeavor that is just getting started here, and I'll be reading the proclamation for the 2020 census, promoting awareness and participation. And is Taylor Hong here? Yes. Taylor, come on up. Good to see you again. And you've done a great job since you last came here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I read this, can you tell everybody about the meeting that we had a few Fridays ago?
Sure. My name is Taylor Huang, and I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. I work to connect cities, communities, and nonprofit organizations to work together to engage in outreach to hard-to-count communities, communities that consist of immigrants, children 0 to 5, senior citizens, population, homeless populations, and college students who tend to not respond to the survey, and making sure that everyone knows that their voice and they are counted, that they need to be counted, is our civic duty. And about, I think 2 weeks ago on July 26th, Mayor Farrell was present at the South King County Complete Count Table Committee, in which we work with the King County Executive's Office, among other surrounding cities, including Renton, Des Moines, Berrien, City of SeaTac, Tukwila, to work together to come up with a work plan for the South King County part of the county and the state, to have a engagement plan and how all the cities will work together to make sure that the hard-to-count communities have adequate outreach and communication about the 2020 census.
Very good. And at the last meeting, I promised you a letter, and we...
Yes, you did. And Mayor Farrell presented at the meeting a letter in support of Federal Way's participation and work in support of the 2020 census, encouraging everyone to participate and will be a true and complete partner of the U.S. Census.
Very good. Okay, so here's the proclamation. The 2020 census promoting awareness and participation. Whereas the United States Census is mandated by the United States Constitution every 10 years with the goal of counting everyone, and whereas the census is much more than just a head count, providing a picture of our nation that helps determine where to build new schools, hospitals, infrastructure, public transit, and whereas the census data also helps determine how over $675 billion of state and federal funding is allocated to communities and ensures fair congressional representation for growing and diverse communities such as Federal Way. And whereas the City of Federal Way recognizes the census data helps us see how our community has changed over time and also plan for the future. And whereas participation in the census is confidential and secure with strict federal laws protecting information from being disclosed to any law enforcement agency at any time. And whereas the City of Federal Way is committed to assist along with community partners in the 2020 census to ensure everyone in our community is counted. And now, therefore, we, the undersigned mayor and the City Council of the City of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim support for the 2020 census and encourage all Federal Way residents to participate in making sure they, along with their community, are counted. Signed this 13th day of August, 2019. And I'll bring this down.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Oh.
Okay, want to see if you can make your words?
Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell and Federal Way City Council, for this proclamation. It's a very exciting time for us, and we will make sure to post this on our website, including the website that we are working with the South King County table for the 2020 census, to ensure that residents see this and are encouraged that the City of Federal Way is a true participant of the 2020 census. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your work, for being here this evening. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, item B, Certificate of Appointment, Arts Commissioner, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. I would like to invite Jocelyn Pocock to come forward to accept her certificate of appointment to the Arts Commission. Looks like she's not here, so thank you, and I'll hand this to our city clerk. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, now we will get a report on National Night Out. Deputy Chief Kyle Sumpter, I'll let you go first, and then I'll talk. I don't want to step on your presentation, so go ahead.
Very good. One of the best ways to build a safer community is for neighbors to know and care about each other. And when residents combine as grassroots participants in public safety, they are part of the solution. National Night Out is a community building campaign. It is a community-based, police-supported, neighborhood awareness-raising event. National Night Out is traditionally the first Tuesday of every August, and so last Tuesday night in the City of Federal Way, there were 37 events registered with the police department. 2 of those were open to the public. For the 3rd year in a row, one was a large event, was convened at Town Square Park. More oomph about that later, I'm sure, from Betty through a pink sheet. And for the first time, there was one at Light of Christ Community Garden. 35 other individually registered neighborhoods conducted an event, and 13 of those were in multifamily housing areas, properties. We estimate that approximately 3,000 Federal Way residents left their homes on a beautiful Tuesday, August night and went out and lingered with their neighbors for a couple of hours and had dinner, a barbecue, and some refreshments and nice conversation. Federal Way police officers, a couple of local DOC officers, several firefighters, all went throughout the city to make sure all 37 venues were visited by people who are the professional protectors of those neighborhoods. Night Out is, without a doubt, one of my favorite professional evenings every year. It is the best time for a community to get together with their professional protectors in a way that is nothing but good. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the City Council for your ever enthusiastic support of the evening, and special thanks to every Federal Way resident who left their home for a couple of hours and lingered outside on a beautiful Tuesday night.
And thank you, Deputy Chief. It was a fantastic evening. I want to start. It was great to be in the briefing room. Chief Wong had me in there before the law enforcement officers who gave up an evening of their time to go out into the community, out to all those groups, and we saw them at different locations, and it was good to see the probation officers there and and all the officers, and it was very good. Then we went immediately to Town Square Park. I'd like to say thank you to Betty Taylor. I read a mayoral proclamation there about National Night Out, and we presented that to Betty, but also to the Deputy Mayor and for all our hard work on this event. Thank you, and to Senator Claire Wilson for their support. And it does kind of, even that event, things don't happen in a vacuum. They don't happen with one person. They happen with a lot of people collaborating. And so I know that, this event is very near and dear to the hearts of those individuals I just mentioned, because it really is an opportunity for, folks, we're a great number of neighborhood meetings, but it gives also people maybe that don't have a neighborhood, or don't live in a neighborhood like that, that come together like that to go to a central place. So it was good. It was great. It was also good to see a couple locations that I go to every year, and one location in particular had my fried chicken right there ready for me. So it was great, and some adopted neighborhoods. So I'll be sure to go to that neighborhood again. So it was a fun time. Anyone else like to talk? Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add on National Night Out?
Well, I'd like to thank, of course, Betty for her leadership on the Town Square event. but I'd like to thank the vendors who came and the fire folks who came. They had the ladder truck up, and they had the ladder up all the way up for quite some time, and the police officers who stopped by to see us. So that was great, and we are already planning for next year, so.
Very good. Councilmember Duclos?
Yeah, I attended the one at the Light of Christ Church, and it was very, very well attended. I was very, very pleased with that. We had hot dogs that were cooked on a grill, and we got to see the inside of the small building they had there. I didn't realize that it was actually an office and had a shower and a toilet facility in there, and they had a lot of maps and pictures on the walls in there, because that's always locked and everything. And then we got a tour. I got a tour of the garden and some of the exotic things they're growing in the garden that I'd never heard of before, and they would tell me what they were. So I was there for about an hour and a half, and then I realized I had to go home and let the dog out.
Right.
But it was really, really nice. There were a lot of people. There must have been about 50 people there when I was there. Oh, yeah,
Deputy Mayor
and
again? Oh, yeah.
they had, on the way out, they had these baskets where you could throw bean bags in. I got mine every time, right in the center.
And I would be very awful if I didn't mention the Federal Way Lions Club, who has been with us since the very first year, cooking hot dogs and supporting us at Town Square.
All right, and Councilmember Kopang, did you have something?
No, Deputy Chief Sumpter, I just want to say how, what you talked about the value of getting the police into the community in a positive way. I listened to you and
Immeasurable value to that.
Yeah,
It's my favorite night,
yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, I caught that, and I think that that it leaves a big impression though, and I think it reinforces the importance of this event in my mind. I think I'm already as enthusiastic as a supporter, but I think that just speaks to the value of positive community engagement. I know obviously we've got the Coffee with the Cops events that we do, but I definitely think that continued efforts on community engagement can only make more good days for you, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's so much fun, everybody. I think what's great is now that we have this hybrid of an event between the centralized and the decentralized in all the neighborhoods, to see individuals that you've never met before, or long friends that you have. It's like, oh, I didn't realize there was one person I hadn't seen in a few years. It'd probably been about 6 or 7 years since I'd seen an old friend, and he happened to be in one of those. So it is a great opportunity to reconnect and to meet new friends as well. So it's really a good opportunity for all of us. So would encourage you, if you don't have one of these events in your neighborhood, please sign up, or let Betty and the deputy mayor know you're on board to assist with next year's at Town Square Park. So it was great. Thank you very much, Chief. Okay, in regard to recent events, just this past Saturday, we had the Flavor of Federal Way, the second event of that nature that we've had here. And I think it doubled in size. I'd like a big thanks to Jerry Lynn Clark, who really helps with all things organizational with the with the council and the city, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And what's that? Oh, yeah, of course, Greg Bariso. Greg, thank you very much for your work on that as well. And it was put on by the Diversity Commission, and they just did a phenomenal job. So thank you, Greg. And I couldn't believe how many people were there. So it was great.
Jessica Cox.
What's that?
Jessica Cox.
And Jessica Cox, yes.
She helped plan.
That's right. Okay. All right, takes a village to give the presentation. So thanks, you guys. Exactly. Thank you very much. Okay, so a lot of things going on. We had the 63rd annual Kiwanis Salmon Bake on July 30th, and boy, doesn't that seem like a long time ago now? It's like 2 weeks ago now. A lot of things have happened since July 30th, but that was just a day like this. And I don't know what it is, but we had Fusion last week, and I think Fusion must have some sort of special relationship with the weather person, because I have never ever seen a cloudy day when it's time for Fusion. It's usually just absolutely beautiful weather right there, actually at that location there, down at Dumas Bay, and a lot of folks there. And then we also had, obviously, the 63rd Annual Kiwanis Salmon Bake, which was also great. This Saturday, we've got a upcoming event. We've got the movie at Town Square Park, and we've got, I think it's a Lego Movie 2 on August 17th. And John, what time do you think that'll start?
Mr. Mayor, we always try to wait until exact darkness. The darker, the better for the film quality. So right about 20 minutes after official sunset. We kind of play it by ear depending on weather.
At sunset now, I think it's about 8:25 or 8:20, so we're talking about 8:45, wouldn't you think?
That's best guess. That would be what I would guess, yes.
Okay. A little bit of trivia. The very first movie night ever in Town Square Park, which is now 5 years ago this month, was the first Lego movie. And so here we are for the sequel, and it's going to be great. It is really one. I'll tell you, the very first time we actually did that, I remember, and it was such a new concept that we were doing the movies in the park. And I remember being, I had my little, Wendy and I had little Ben there, and I was so into the movie. All of a sudden, a car drove behind the screen, and I just thought, oh my God, I am sitting outside, aren't I? I mean, it's just it just really is nice with a thousand of your neighbors out there in this beautiful Town Square Park, and it is a really good time for families and just to just really enjoy the event. So it's like a 40-foot screen, John, inflatable.
Yes, that is a 40-foot screen that we have out there. It's a big one.
Thank you.
Biggest they make, as far as you know.
All right, thank you. Exactly. Okay, so lots going on. I hope you can make movie in the park this Sunday. All right, now council committee reports. Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee, FEDRAC. Councilmember Duclos.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Our last meeting was on the 23rd, and it was a very, very fast meeting because we didn't have a whole lot of things on the agenda. We approved the minutes of the previous meeting. We approved the Dumas Bay janitorial contract, the PAC at 2% for the arts project closeout, and payment of taxes, vouchers, and the monthly finance report. And that was it. We were out of there in about 15 minutes, which is a record for that committee. So anyway, our next meeting is August 27th, 2019. And this week, our finance director and I will be meeting with the auditors on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And that's
Fantastic.
my report.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Moore on Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
There is nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
No news is good news. All right, Councilmember Kopang with Land Use.
As is often the case in August, we had a very light agenda. So I have nothing of note to report on, other than we had a good meeting and talked about a lot of things that needed to be talked about. But it was not a lot of meat on the bone. Next meeting for land use transportation will be on September 9th, based on the fact that September 2nd is Labor Day. So come the second Monday of September for land use transportation. And that concludes my report.
All right, Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this month, Parks was canceled as well because of the National Night Out, and we had our meeting tonight. So the next Parks meeting will be Tuesday, September 10th, 5 to 7 at the High-Low Bus Room here at City Hall.
Okay. And Lydia, Councilmember Sefa Dawson, do you have anything on PIC?
Yes, I do. We met about a month ago, so it's a little old, but I still want to share a few of the topics that were discussed at the PIC meeting. One was on homelessness, regional convening of leaders, and so maybe, Mayor, you already have an invitation from SCA about that to have the mayors and the leaders come together to have this conversation. And then SCA and AWC are going to partner on legislative agendas and local control, which is going to be really great because then the two entities are going to be on the same page when it comes to forwarding legislative agendas to for the 2020 agenda. And then there was a charter review that King County is trying to consolidate and adopt And so PIC is in opposition of that. So there's going to be a vote next month. So when I get the information, I'll forward it to council members so I can represent well and vote accordingly. And I think that's it. There's no meeting in August, so our next meeting is going to be in September. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lydia. All right, Deputy Mayor for the Deputy Mayor report.
Thank you. So this afternoon, right before this council meeting, we had senior commission interviews, and we interviewed 14 people. We will be making those appointments later on in this meeting tonight, and their very first meeting will be sometime in September, and we will, of course, publish that and let everyone know it is open to the public. We do have some other commission vacancies: Parks and Recreation Commission, Youth Commission, Civil Service Commission, and the Independent Salary Commission. Those applications are due by August 23rd. So if you're interested in those, you can go online and fill out an application. Or if you have any questions, call the city clerk's office and she'll be glad to help you. The last summer, I think it was in June, I'm not sure, the council held their very first coffee with council, and it was in this room. We are holding our second coffee with council on October 12th, and it's a time where we are here to talk a little bit about what council's doing, but mostly to hear what the public has to tell us and to share with us. We will get more information out as we get closer to the date. And I do want to remind people that this is our only council meeting this month. Next week, we will not be here. I don't know where everyone else will be, but I'll be somewhere else. And in September, we will resume our regular schedule.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Okay, now for the most important part of the evening, which is citizen comment. Everyone knows the rules. It's normally 3 minutes unless you've got 5 individuals that are here with you. And then I believe we've got several written comments. And so we'll have those read. We'll do those at the end. Okay, and second. Okay, first we've got Dana Holloway, and that'll be followed by Lana Bostic, Bernadine Lund, Lance Little, and then John Reesing.
Good evening. My name is Dana Holloway. I'm speaking tonight in favor of Agenda Item 6A to suspend City of Federal Way's participation in CTAC Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, also known as START, which the cities of Burien and Des Moines have already done. The purpose of START, as stated in their website, the CTAC Airport Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, START, is a new way for the communities of Burien, Des Moines, Federal Way, Normandy Park, SeaTac, and Tukwila to engage with the Port of Seattle staff and aviation industry representatives. START provides a chance to develop a shared understanding, discuss community concerns, and voice feedback on the airport's construction projects, programs, and operations. Each city has a designated 3 START members who are joined by airline representatives and the SeaTac airport staff. The Federal Aviation Administration is expected to provide agency expertise. These cities have participated in START in good faith. Unfortunately, it has become clear that START is only smoke and mirrors by the Port of Seattle and the FAA to show that they are involved in community engagement. The final straw is the Port of Seattle did not disclose to the START members it was going to move forward with the SAMP, Sustainable Master Airport, Sustainable Airport Master Plan without completion of the environmental impact statement. The port nearly hid their conduct by authorizing spending up to $1 million to begin airport expansion during a Kirkland meeting, with the funding outside of public discussion on the consent agenda without notice to START representatives and without information being released regarding the current NEPA and SEPA processes. Since the Port of Seattle has not conducted themselves in good faith and lacking any positive results from the community participation in START, I ask the City Council to vote in favor of suspending participation to START. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lana Bostic.
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and the council. First of all, I wanted to just also say thank you for the National Night Out. My apartment complex, we had a really fun time, and the fire truck came, and all the kids really had a blast with that, so I'm glad that's going to keep going. So the main reason I wanted to come tonight was I want to just give you a little suggestion about something that came up a couple of months ago in June when we had Pride Month, and you all gave a beautiful proclamation for that. And then there was some talk about putting a pride flag up in Federal Way, and that kind of got tabled, and there was discussions about not where to put one, there's not enough flag poles, kind of that sort of thing. So anyway, I've noticed that I just drove down 320th, and there's, on each side of 320th, there's 22 American flags on the poles. I think that's right, I was trying to drive at the same time. So there's at least 20 flags that are on these light poles. So I have the suggestion that one of those flags be taken down, and we buy a pride flag and put it there for a month or whatever, and that would make a lot of people in this community feel better, I think. I also think if people wanted to have the Norwegian Independence Day flag or the Mexican Independence Day flag or anything of that, I know we always put a 12 flag, but anything like that, that it would be an easy vote to just say, can we put this flag up or 3 flags up along 320th for 3 months or 6 months or 1 month or something like that. I think it would be easy to have someone go up there, take that flag out, put a new flag in, come down. That's my suggestion, and maybe you could just vote on it tonight. All right.
Thank you, Lana.
You're welcome.
Bernadine Lund.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bernadine Lund. I'm here almost every time, so you must know who I am by now. I want to express my agreement with Burien and Des Moines on suspending participation in the START meetings and feel that Federal Way should do the same thing. It always seems that the START meeting is one more Port of Seattle meeting where the Port of Seattle makes the agenda and prepares the minutes, and from my past experience at work, whoever does that is in control of everything. It seems the people on the committee could meet together and discuss issues more directly without the port staff being there, and they can talk with local and national legislators who seem to care more about the public than the Port of Seattle does. One city council person said, it's important to be at the table to know what's happening. The problem is the Port of Seattle has shown that's not always the case. One frequently has to know more information about the topic that the port discusses to know what is happening. It's kind of like this thing with the $10 million really went over my head because I didn't know I didn't understand the ramifications of it when I watched it on the video. I do know that at the START meeting, the last START meeting, the Port of Seattle had 2 people fly in from the FAA, and they gave a presentation that had misleading information, and one said, after direct questioning, that he did not agree with the 2018 WHO Europe report. And then they left before the meeting was over, so nobody had a chance to talk to them. I'm thinking it may be time to reformat and reconfigure the START meeting so it works better for everyone and not just for the Port of Seattle.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Lance Little with Port of Seattle.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members. I'm Lance Little, Managing Director of Aviation Division for Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. I am here to speak to the agenda item regarding Federal Way's participation in SeaTac Airport Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, also known as START. About a year and a half ago, in a discussion inside the port and with airport communities, I was encouraged to create a forum that brings the parties together in a conversation regarding airport operations. The city, community representatives, major airlines, and the Federal Aviation Administration have all come together to discuss issues of concern to the surrounding communities. START is about working to identify current operating effects and potential ways to address them. For the better part of a year, we have worked hard and have made progress, particularly on a number of noise-related issues. Federal Way's participation in the roundtable has directly resulted in the recommended change to the glide slope for runway 34 right that now will be included as part of the proposed taxiway project in the Sustainable Airport Master Plan. In addition, the noise action agenda for the START Aviation Noise Working Group has been shaped by the city and community representatives, and 6 items are advancing. We have greatly appreciated the participation of Federal Way in START and hope the city will continue to participate. Your representatives have been informative and engaged participants and have contributed greatly to the work being done. The port is aware of Burien and Des Moines suspending their participation in START. It seems to reflect concerns about recent Port Commission action to fund a preliminary design related to certain SAMP projects, as well as lack of timely outreach to notify communities for the briefing and action. That lack of timely outreach to notify communities was an oversight, and for that we apologize. We have heard and we understand their concerns. We believe that more is accomplished by being engaged in working to resolve issues of concern. To that end, we want to be clear that Burien and Des Moines are welcome and encouraged to rejoin the conversations, and that the work of START will continue to move forward. I hope that Federal Way will continue to constructively engage with the airport in START and these important issues. Thank you for allowing me to comment today.
All right, thank you very much. John Reesing.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, I'm here to speak in favor of Federal Way withdrawal from, suspension of participation in START. I have requested 5 minutes since I'm here representing the Quiet Skies Puget Sound as well as Quiet Skies Coalition, unaffiliated members of the community, and am a START member and participant.
That's fine, John. 5.
So I have 7 bullets in 5 minutes, so number 1 through 7 if you're taking notes, and I'll try to give bullet labels and not more than a few sentences. The first reason is the critical importance of a unanimous vote by council tonight to withdraw, and that reason is solidarity with our other 2 sister cities. The 3 cities together make up 76% of the population of airport-impacted South King County cities. At the very first meeting of the mayor's task force on the airport, there was unanimous agreement that the cities had to act together if we were going to have a positive impact on the problems created for residents, the injustice created by the airport operations. Solidarity is something that the congressional delegation led by Congressman Smith's office has been emphatic that it is important for the cities to get on the same page and act in concert with each other. There are efforts under the way in that respect, and if Federal Way votes tonight not to support the positions taken by the other 2 councils, you will be driving a stake in the heart of that solidarity. It is absolutely critical that you vote unanimously to do this. The other point I would make is that the cities collectively allowed the port to proceed with the expansions of the international terminal, the expansions in the north terminal, without holding the port responsible for complying with SEPA. We cannot allow that to happen again, and yet that topic is one that's verboten from the start proceedings. They refuse to engage on environmental procedures, the EIS statement, and so forth. The second bullet would be runway use fiction. Last night, the noise subgroup got presented with the final draft of a letter of agreement between the FAA, the port, dealing with nighttime operations. This is a part of the PR operation of the port that substantive noise things are being done. There is no measurement in this letter. There's no baseline against which conformity with the intent can be measured in the future. There's no consultation with the cities about the content of this matter. And one of the critical items is that in 2002 Part 150 study, the FAA agreed to the North Flow Noise Abatement Corridor procedures. This is basically route the airplanes over the Seattle industrial area instead of over residential neighborhoods. The FAA has insisted that that provision be dropped out of this letter of agreement. So it is a regression, it is an abrogation of existing obligations. And the rationale that the port staff presented to us yesterday evening as to why this is appropriate is that the FAA was taking the position that including this existing provision in the new letter would require an environmental impact review and therefore was, burdensome. 5 minutes can't have passed already. Third bullet point, not good faith. I distributed to all of you the New Yorker article on the health impacts of noise, and in that were new technologies out of Paris, the Medusa, and also the Sounds of New York artificial intelligence effort to be able to identify the source of a sound that is recorded. I specifically asked Stan Shepard at a subgroup meeting to look at those two technologies, inquire, report back to the subgroup about whether these technologies would be appropriate to integrate into the ground sound initiative that the noise group has underway. He did not do that. Instead, the port brought in their paid sound consultant who gave a historical overview, a dog and pony show. I asked him during the course of the subgroup meeting, did he follow up and make inquiries of those two organizations? I did not get an answer. I didn't let it go. I asked him a second time. I still didn't get an answer. And after the meeting, a one-on-one, he agreed that yes, he did not, in fact, contact those. His message to the group was that artificial intelligence couldn't possibly work to identify sounds because it had not been done in the past. Well, I ask you, think about Christopher Columbus on the voyage of discovery. It hadn't been done before. Think about Jim Bryan of Wichita, Kansas, running the first 4-minute mile. Hadn't ever been done before. This is an insulting kind of argument to present in what is supposed to be a collegial, collaborative effort to improve things.
All right, thank you, John. I think it's important that we
stay on time. All right.
Yeah.
Let me just name the bullets.
Okay, go ahead and name the bullets. Well, actually, while you're doing that, what I'm going to hand down, we've got 2 written comments by Susan Teglin-Peterson and by Steve Edmondson. I'll hand those over. I'll go ahead and name the bullets.
The port has made repeated threats that if the public participants in START didn't stay in line, stay in the lanes that the port identifies as acceptable, then START would be canceled. and it would be our fault. The way that the South King County Fund has been handled and the secret projects, the refusal when Bill Vadino, where are you, Bill? There you are, at the proceedings asked for that list to be provided, and they wouldn't answer that question, and they haven't done it and don't intend to do it as of my conversation last night. Again, please vote unanimously to withdraw. The port has to change their ways. They are mandated by law to engage us, and that means full and fair, not a manipulative process.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your service on START. Thank you for your service on our Healthy and Quiet Skies initiative as well. All right, City Clerk?
First
And
letter.
let's time those letters too, please. Please.
First letter from Steve Edmondson. It says, Federal City Council, Dear council members, I am a longtime resident of Des Moines. I grew up in Normandy Park. My mother still lives there. I currently reside in the 30th Legislative District. I'm the creator of the Briefing Project, serve on the Des Moines Aviation Advisory Committee, and on the State Department of Commerce Aviation Impact Study Technical Advisory Committee. I wish that I could attend your council meeting this week to provide public comment. I've recently written about the suspension of participation in the SeaTac Airport Roundtable by Burien and then Des Moines for the Briefing Project. I hope you will accept this letter as my public comment. For simplicity, I'm attaching the August 9th, the Briefing Project. For clarity, the decision to suspend participation is not made in isolation. The recent decision by the port to proceed with expansion work without environmental review is symptomatic of ongoing dysfunction with the START process. Substantial questions have previously been raised relating to the transparency, accountability, and process. Ongoing unresolved issues appear to include refusal to authorize recording of meetings, non-shared agenda setting, failures to proactively share material facts relating to anticipated port actions, confusion over scope and process of decision-making within the purview of START. While staying at the table may be a low-conflict approach, it's unclear what significant course correction is expected when the port is being permitted to proceed with beginning expansion work before environmental review and without consulting with START members, without consequence and in conflict with the original START charter. My own conclusion is that suspension of participation by your city is now unfortunately an essential tool to provide positive change to the START process, improve substantive outcomes, and avoidance of the actual harm. I hope that, on behalf of the health of all your citizens and your environment, you will seriously consider joining in the action taken by Burien and Des Moines. Thank you for your consideration. Yours truly, Steve Edmondson. Second letter from Sue Tegler Peterson reads, Since I cannot be at the meeting tonight, I want to encourage the council to withdraw from the START committee. I've gone to quite a few of these meetings and find the following. Number one, many on the committee do not have much knowledge, especially of noise and emissions, as I would think necessary. Only a handful of people are really educated and informed on the issues facing the cities in our area. Number two, as a member of the public, we are given a very limited time to make public comment, often only 1 to 2 minutes, not nearly enough for 5 to 6 people to explain their thoughts about the hazards we are facing. Number three, if we're actually seeing results from this committee, then perhaps stay engaged. But because of the lack of anything significant coming out of that committee, we should find better ways for our city's aviation representatives to work on this issue. Finally, Federal needs to be far more vocal and active on protecting its citizens from the harm of SeaTac. The citizens need to hear more about the issues and possible solutions than we are hearing. They need to be encouraged to become involved in this fight for our quality of life. Thank you, Sue Peterson.
All right, that concludes public comment at this point. I do want everyone to know that after we heard, we've got Linda Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I was trying to decide whether to say something or not, and I just want to bring you a historical perspective. In the 2000s, as a Federal, my name is Linda Kochmar. I was a former Federal City Council member, former state representative, and I sat on the third runway discussions with the Airport Communities Coalition for 10 years, 10 years. And many of the things that you're facing right now are things that, very same things we face. With all due respect to Mr. Little from the port, I'm glad he's here, because I very rarely ever saw anybody from the port visiting our city. I hope that you stay together with the other airport neighbors, because you have strength in numbers, but you need to keep the pressure on for a a second regional airport. The third runway is done. What they're going to do is they're going to fill those runways with as many planes as they can get. It's about money. So what we need to do, and the noise around here is going to get worse. So I think we really need to keep the pressure on with our congressional delegation for a second regional airport. We've always needed that. They need to keep that going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And actually, you forgot to say former mayor, Linda. We served right next to each other for many years. Actually, just to let everybody know, I had Congressman Adam Smith in my office last week, had a great conversation with him about this issue and about engagement on multiple levels and how this is done. I do want to say, Mr. Little and also Dave Kaplan with the port, thank you both for being here. We do appreciate you being here to address, and obviously everyone here who gave comment. I do want to let everybody know, or let the council and the public know, that this was not actually the portion of the budget for the business item discussion regarding suspending participation in the START committee. That was not a product of the regular agenda setting process, but after the agenda setting for this meeting had occurred, and then I learned that Des Moines had joined Burien in suspending their participation in START with notification to council. I added this to the agenda to ensure that a month wouldn't go by before we actually had this conversation, to make sure that a timely conversation could occur with the council. So, and then when that comes up, we'll have a presentation with by Bill Vidino. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment before we move on? Thank you very much, and we very much appreciate your public comment. All right, consent agenda. These items have gone through the committee process, and they can be passed all at once, or after I read each one of the items, or all of the items, I'll ask if a council member would want to consider, to pull an item for separate consideration. So here we go. 5A, the minutes for the July 2015, 2019 special meeting minutes, July 16th, 2019 regular and special meeting minutes, and July 30th, 2019 special meeting minutes. Item B, vouchers, June 16th of 2019 through July 15th of 2019. Item C, June 2019 monthly financial report. Item D, Dumas Bay Center janitorial and housekeeping services contract. Item E, Performing Arts and Events Center, 2% for the arts, payment of taxes. Item F, resolution, accept grant funding for transportation improvement projects, South 314th Street and Lakota Middle School safe routes to school. Item G, military roads, south pavement repair contract award. After reading those, council, is there any item that the council would want pulled for separate consideration? All right, hearing none, Deputy Mayor Honda, do you have a motion?
I move approval of items A through G on the consent agenda.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, we heard you, Lydia. Thank you. Okay, council business. And here we are, discussion regarding suspending participation in the START committee. First we'll hear from Bill Vidino, and then we'll open it up to the council for discussion.
Mayor and members of council, Deputy Mayor. So I'm going to help tee up the discussion by just giving you some history and some context and what's happening. The background is we've been a member of the CTAC Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable START Committee for the last year and a half. 2 community members and a city staff person have been participating in the START Roundtable and the 2 working groups, one being on aviation noise and the other on federal policy advocacy. And of course, that's Chris Hall and John Riesing, Yarden Weidenfeld before myself, and now me. As we know, on Monday, October 5th, the Burien City Council voted to suspend participation, that's suspend, after the unanimous recommendation of the Burien Airport Committee. And then that was followed on Thursday, August 8th, when the Des Moines City Council also suspended participation after the unanimous vote by the Des Moines Airport Committee. And we've been keeping you in touch on this, but the Burien rationale because of the move up to 30% design on the SAMP near-term projects and not releasing information on the NEPA and the SEPA before a port meeting. START members weren't, the port did not notify START members of their design expenditure proposal consent agenda until the day of the commission meeting in Kirkland. For instance, we also were notified that the 3.1 degree flight path was on that agenda as well that morning, but that's when they were notified as well. They also cited the perceived lack of progress with START and the time, effort, and spent to participate. For instance, you know, us as a group, we have 3 meetings a month, which we all go to. And then Burien Council's belief that there are other forums available to address the city's concerns. Des Moines is going to be sending us a letter, but you heard from Steve Edmondson pretty much what his representation on the airport committee was forwarded to council, and that was unanimous as well too. Now, just to give you some history, and this is especially for the people at home, I've been working with this for 3 months, and as it's been reported to you and will report to the public, these are the initiatives to date. And starting July 1, there'll be the voluntary late night noise limitation program from 12 to 5. Violators will be reported, carriers will be reported, but it is optional. The second, the revised runway use agreement minimizing use of the third runway during late night hours should be finalized by the end of August. The big one for Federal Way is the runway glide slope change. In doing some research, apparently that started when the Boeing 707 and DC-8s were put on an expanded runway in the early 60s and wasn't really noticed until Chris Hall, our representative, brought it to the port's attention. They moved on it. I've been telling you it's going to be 2 to 3 years. Last night I was told at a START meeting that it's now probably up to 4 years out to do that with that taxiway project. And then other noise initiatives, the ground noise analysis that'll begin in the fall for taxing and for the cities that are surrounding there. The examination that's going to start on a steeper glide path to perhaps protect Federal Way and other residents for the flight path. And then in the spring, as John was noting last night, John Reesing, they've written a letter to the A320 carriers because there are some modifications that can be done to lessen the noise to Federal Way and the other cities. And then, of course, the last thing I'll talk about is the federal advocacy initiatives. There are multiple ones. You've got them in your packet, but engaging our congressional representatives, the bills by Congressman Adam Smith about noise, about particulates, the whole gamut. That's part of the legislative agenda, which your colleagues, your citizens have been involved. So based on that, that's basically where we are at this point. And so let the discussion begin.
All right. Council? Councilmember Duclos.
What's been the port's reaction to these things?
Well, having been in a meeting right after it broke, basically it's, well, let's see what we can do, and they're welcome to come back. And basically, what you've heard from our good friend Lance tonight is basically where the port's at about welcoming them back if they come back. But at this point, I'm not sure where they are as far as talking to the 2 cities about their concerns.
Thank you.
I do want to add that Lance was at the Flavor of Federal Way this weekend, by the way, so thank you for that.
Okay. Councilmember Tran?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bill. I have a question. So let's say if we are going to suspend our participation with this committee, what other avenue or forums that we can use to raise our concern?
Right. Right now, we have the old-fashioned talk to our port commissioners, one-to-one, much like we do with what we do with other public officials. There is the Highline Forum as well, too. So those are 2, but good old-fashioned face-to-face with another governmental body is there.
Okay. Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, Bill, thank you for your presentation on this. This is has been kind of enlightening as we're getting information, and I appreciate the mayor's office being on top of sharing information with the council on this. You know, in this memorandum that I'm reading, it's, and some of it I'm going to be kind of repeating, but there's a question I'm going to follow it up with. It says, Port of Seattle's decision to move up to 30% design on SAMP near-term projects and authorize spending up to $10 million without notice to start representatives and without information being released regarding the current NEPA and SEPA process. So, I mean, maybe it's a question for Dave Kaplan, maybe it's a question for you, but why would the port not communicate with a citizen advisory, citizen groups?
Well, they portray it as an accident, and they've apologized. Is that fair?
I mean, but why would that be an accident? That's just, I'm just confused by that. I mean, I respect the Port of Seattle, I respect the work that they're doing, but how would that be an accident?
I would say that no one is perfect.
Sure.
But I think based on working with all these communities over the last 3 months and everything, the port would not make accidents like this because they would know what would happen. So I don't think it was intentional. They know the firestorm that would happen, and so they wouldn't do something like that, in my opinion. And it happened, and I believe it was an accident.
And we, you know, in my conversations with the commissioners, I think there's been a real sea change with regard to the commissions, with the port commissioners, in regard to their approach to, you know, being much more open to input and really being solicitous of input as well. So I think that is important to know.
Yeah, and Mayor, certainly I've kind of gathered that sense with our new commissioners that are coming in. I hear it's an issue that's being discussed a lot more. But and like I said, I want to be very clear, and that's, I respect the work that the Port of Seattle does. It's another governmental entity. It's important, but I mean, in John's presentation, 76% of the population is in the 3 cities here, and it's an issue that's been brewing over for a period of time, and with all due respect to the Port of Seattle, I don't understand how you not communicate with citizens, or that it was a mistake. I'm pretty sure mistakes, well, I'm at a loss with that. So that was just one of the questions I had, and with that, I'll end my time. Thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question, Bill. Is suspending and withdrawing completely, it's essentially the same thing, correct?
I don't believe so. Suspending means whatever you define it to be, which would be let's see what happens. Withdrawing is just a total withdrawal and you're no longer involved.
Okay, so we're saying
suspension gives you the latitude to see what happens.
Okay, and what was the rationale from the other cities in terms of suspending versus withdrawing completely?
Reading between the lines, I mean, there was that statement that we just shared and from Burien. It sounded like they wanted to, I think they were waiting for an opening to discuss something. So otherwise they would have just withdrawn completely. And then Steve's the only comment, and he's not on the council from Des Moines, so we eagerly await Des Moines' reaction. But my educated guess is it's to, see what happens versus just totally leaving the game.
Lydia, do you have, Councilmember Safadosin, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do, and thank you for the opportunity. I have not been involved in START, so what I'm going to share is just from what I've read and conversations that I've had. My concern is if we remove ourselves or if we suspend, that means we're no longer at the table. And so that mode of communication between the city and the port is going to diminish. And so I'm involved in Highline Forum, but it's not, I don't think it's as heavily impactful as START is. And so I do appreciate John's comments and Linda Kochmar and everyone who commented, but I really don't understand, or I don't support to suspend or remove. I'd rather stay at the table and be a part of it. I know this was an oversight. There was an apology at the Highline Forum. I also believe that at 30% of preliminary design. I'm also, I wonder if the port would be willing to maybe look at it again, revisit, and get the city's engagement. And I think this is a conversation to be had. But I don't know how effective it would be to remove ourselves from this, from being at the table, because our voice then will be lost. And it would be counterproductive because we are not, I mean, there's, being at the table, you're always involved and engaged. And also, I believe there's other things that START had accomplished as a group. So this oversight, which is impactful, and I'm sure we're all hearing the adverse, unintended consequences that it's led or intended. I mean, I'm not going to speak to the port intention. However, I can say that things like this could happen. It could even happen to the council where there's an oversight or a mistake. I would still suggest that we stay at the table to continue to be engaged. Now, I'm not saying what happened is appropriate, but I'm also saying let's have another opportunity to fix this problem and to move forward, because this committee is very important to the engagement of the city and the cities, and the port to collaboratively work, to continue to do the work. So that would be my suggestion. But also, I'm not negating or I'm not overstepping what other experts, especially like John, are saying. But I'm also saying I would hate to lose that communication that we would have by being at the table.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Lydia. Councilmember Kopeng?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think any decisions that we make tonight certainly have an impact. As far as the mistake made by the port, I mean, I think we've all made mistakes. I understand that. I don't think this is just about that, though. In talking to Chris Hall and John Riesling, who have attended the START meetings, I think there's a feeling of frustration that things are not moving. There's not the collaboration that I believe was expressed by the port when this began. And I think that, quite frankly, the collaboration could be better. And I think that by suspending, we would be sending a message to the port that we're willing to be a part of continued discussions, but we need to talk about the framework of how that looks, so it really does have meaning to the cities that are partnering with the port in that round table. I also think that it's very important for us as a city to look at the fact that we do have other cities that have shared reservations about START as a whole. And I think standing together, we're going to get better results in addressing the shortcomings that have been expressed tonight and have been expressed in many previous conversations that I've had as well. So anyway, I think that it's as important as it is to be at the table. I think sometimes it's important to push away and say, I don't like what we're eating. And I think, quite frankly, I think there's some concern that we're not getting the value out of START that we should have as a city.
Matt?
Councilmember Duclos,
I concur with what you just said. And I think it's important that we stick with the other cities, because we went into this as a group. And I think that we need to stay with those cities and let the port know that we're not happy and we're not accepting this, and we will be fighting it. So, I really want us to stay with the 5 cities that came together, 2 years ago, when we heard what they were going to be doing. And because if we don't, then our city and all of those cities are going to be overwhelmed with air traffic and all the stuff that goes with it, all of that baggage. So, thank you.
All right. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. this is a big deal, and this is a big deal for not just Federal Way, but it's a big deal for our region. The airport is continuing to grow and wants to continue to grow and grow and grow, and it's time that we stop the growth and look at what else could be done, which is building a new airport somewhere else. The purpose of START was to get the cities together, Burien, Des Moines, Federal Way, Normandy Park, SeaTac, and Tukwila, with Port of Seattle staff and aviation industry representatives, and to work together to solve some issues in the cities most affected by the airport. And the mistake that happened, it's over, an apology was issued, but it was a pretty big mistake. You know, you don't leave out your partners when you're talking about such big issues that affect so many people. I think that the best thing that we can do as a council tonight is to suspend our activities and START, but to work together with especially Burien and Des Moines, and to create a forum where not only we're working with the cities, but we're working with our state delegations that are interested in Congress, and come together in a forum much like START, and perhaps it's still going to be START, where everyone can get together back at the table, where trust can be earned, where discussions can happen, and where we can see results. Things have happened in START. It hasn't been a waste of time. But at this point, with 2 cities pulling out, I think that the purpose and the reason that START was created now doesn't exist. And we need to get the cities back together. We need to get everyone back to the table and working together. And if we suspend tonight, I think that does send a very strong message that we are willing to start this over and to do it the right way. And even call it START. But just, let's get that trust back, and let's work together. This is very, very important for our community.
Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly trust and government and the people, it's a very delicate matter, and I certainly concur with your comments, Deputy Mayor Honda. And I think for me, the other thing that's coming to my mind is, and the reason why I'll be voting to suspend participation in the START committee is because our residents, you know, we have a number of people that have been watching and monitoring this issue. I know all of us have heard about it. And this vote, if we vote unanimously, sends a message to our residents saying, we hear you, and we're listening, and we're going to fight for you guys, and work together with our other cities and ensure that we're getting our voice heard with the Port of Seattle. And so that would be the other reason why I'll be supporting to suspend this participation. Thanks.
All right. Hearing that, is there a motion?
Well, I have a question.
Yes. Councilmember Sefadossin.
Thank you. So this question may be for Bill, but if the City of Federal Way does follow suit and does do the suspension, what is Plan B? Are these cities going to come together to? What's the plan? Because I think that's also important to know.
Yeah, Lydia make a great point. We'll reach out. The city manager for Burien is my former chief of staff, Brian Wilson. I'll probably reach out. I will reach out later this week or as early as tomorrow and talk about some of these suggestions about ways to move forward. We'll reach out, obviously, to the leadership of Des Moines and to the other cities as well, and think about, either an alternate forum or how to re-engage START or to create something else. That there will be outreach first and primarily to Burien and SeaTac, but certainly to all the members and the port. That'll be coordinated through my office.
Okay, so you'll be reaching out within what kind of timeline do you have? Do you know?
Well, I would say, I'll reach out starting tomorrow, but I think in the next several weeks, try to formulate what next steps. This is in the hypothetical. We haven't voted yet. But what next steps would be, and and really what would be the most useful and productive.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I mean, we will definitely, just so everybody knows, we will definitely, I don't want to prejudge anything, and I want to make sure that we hear from these partners first. I may have some ideas, and we've actually heard some ideas a few moments ago. I think it's important not to come with too many preconceived notions. Certainly, coming together, collaborating, working together as partners, I think is obviously a good starting point. With that, Deputy Mayor, did you have a motion?
I do have a motion. So I move to suspend participation in the CTAC Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, or START, and direct staff to return to council to seek authority to resume participation after we have discussed with the other cities and parties concerned our issues and come to an agreement.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Lydia, you voted aye?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right, it's unanimous. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate your help. Okay, item B, Decatur, actually, before we, Bill, we will need to draft a letter. I want to tell the council this, that what I'll do is send a letter to all the, to the port, to the affected cities of this decision, and we'll get that out before the end of the week.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get that, we'll get that in the works. And Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Little, thank you very much for coming tonight. We very much appreciate your participation tonight. Okay, item B, Decatur High School Distributed Antenna System, DAS replacement. First, a staff report from Thomas Fitchner, our IT manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Give me one moment. So before you is presentation for approval of a Decatur High School distributed antenna system replacement. I'll give you a brief staff report to kind of go along with the council memo that's in your packets, and go from there. A brief history, King County Radio this is for our jurisdiction, Federal Way, Greater Federal Way area. King County owns and operates the 800 megahertz radio system. PCERN, that's going to change. PCERN, which is the Public Puget Sound Emergency Radio Network, will eventually change that as we migrate into the newer version of the all-digital P25 radio, which is looming and was voter approved. Decatur High School is located in Police Sector 1, which is a long-standing problem area for 800 megahertz portable radio coverage. And there's a difference between portable and mobile radios. Portable are the ones that the officers carry on their hip, with maybe a little microphone on the shoulder. The mobile radios are the ones that are mounted in the car that are higher wattage and also have a better antenna. So an officer's portable radio has effectively no coverage inside Decatur High School without a DAS, or distributed antenna system. In 2008, after an incident in Decatur High School, a DAS the city, King County Radio, and Sprint Nextel partnered together to install a DAS into the administrative main classroom and lunchroom area of Decatur High School. In 2014, that DAS died and needed to be replaced. It had a hardware failure, and so we had to replace it, and we did. In 2019, King County just recently turned it off, the one that was working, because of interference. And it was within the greater, this particular location and site, this system was creating interference for the greater radio system, which is a big problem. Where this site, Decatur High School, the antenna on the roof that is feeding this system, its donor site, where it's pointed at, is located over by Sequoia Middle School, so pretty much all the way across the city. This was creating the interference. They had to shut it off because otherwise other issues were happening in the system. And just as a note, fire code is requiring all new buildings to meet certain minimum signal strength and coverages. Otherwise, a DAS is required to be installed. And this is why the new Federal High School, as well as the Performing Arts and Event Center, both have DASs included in them or installed in them. So there's three options that we have to this problem of the current one not working. One is build a tower at Decatur High School. Decatur High School, based on the layout and geographic area and location inside of Federal Way, kind of sits in a bowl. It's a low part in our community, and so you would need to build a tower that would further elevate that antenna to get a better, cleaner line of sight at that donor site. That is involving lots of construction, lots of engineering, lots of dollars. Another option was to get a signal from another location and use fiber to transmit that signal down to Decatur. In this case, the donor site would be City Hall. And then the third one that we explored was a mobile repeater inside of a police car. This is by far the cheapest and easiest way to get this thing taken care of. The problem is it only works for police, not other first responders. So while if there was an incident at Decatur, we would be able to go in there as police, but fire, they would be radio silence, which isn't good either. So the chosen option is using City Hall as a donor site. We'll use fiber optic to transmit the signal to Decatur, and all of this equipment will support the new PCERN P25 digital radio system. It will need to be retuned for it, but as with any BDA or DAS system that is installed on any building, including the PAC and Federal High School, it will need to be retuned as we move forward into the next generation of radio technology. So the costs are, the Chief Wong was very successful working with Superintendent Campbell. He was able to get the school district to commit to 50-50 split on all of these costs, which is very nice, very generous of them. We did have to pay, when we replaced it in 2014, we did have to pay full for that system. So the equipment that's before you for approval tonight is listed below. A total with 10% tax and also a contingency just in case, just shy of $40,000 at $39,353.70. So other project costs are, that's weird. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you the entire scope of the project. Comcast has to install the iNet fiber into the building, about $15,000. Run additional fiber at City Hall between downstairs and this room up here. It's about $1,500. And then the school district is also incurring a cost with their own contractor to do a little piece of fiber build inside of Decatur High School. So the total cost that we know right now is about $55,853.70. The city's portion would be just under $28,000. And the asterisk there is important to note that it will change when we get the total from the school district. My gut's telling me it'll be about 5,000 to 10,000 tops for their portion of the work. So the funding source, the original memo had before you indicated that police salary savings would be used to fund this out of the operations. Chief Long and Finance Director Erwula and I met, and we're recommending using the police radio capital reserves. So for every radio that we buy, we collect reserves on it for replacement. With the PCERN initiative becoming very soon, this will alleviate us needing to buy radios because we're going to trade in all of our radios that we have, both mobile in the cars as well as portable, and we're going to get new ones via the voter-funded project. So we will have all new radios, and so we won't need to replace those ones anytime soon. And just like the current system, there's little to no ongoing M&O, so there's no change from the current. There is one thing, though, with that initial installation, it was only the main classroom administration building, not the gym. And so that additional building is not covered with a DAS currently, and there's no 800 megahertz portable radio coverage. Like, you have it tuned to the signal and you click it up and it doesn't work. So due to the complexity of that system, because it's a 2-floor gym, it's got kind of an underground component with the locker rooms and weight room and all that. It's very complex, and there's potentially going to be a lot of antennas that need to be installed. So King County will engineer that solution to make sure that we meet those signal requirements, and this will be an additional cost and possibly require light construction, core drilling, that kind of stuff. So the timeline, why I'm here before you tonight, is early September. We'd like to complete that for Decatur, the main administrative classroom building. This is a high priority for King County Radio. It could be sooner, but currently we're about a 3-week lead time for the equipment just to get it on site, and that's from the manufacturer. So that puts us right around the beginning of September. And then it's relatively straightforward to do the installation. And then hopefully by the end of the year, completion for the Decatur Gymnasium. That's optimistic. It's what King County Radio is shooting for, but it's all to be determined based on what that engineering study comes back with. So I will be available for any questions that you may have, as will Deputy Chief Sumpter.
Councilmember Moore, then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you so much. Two questions are going to come up to mind here. It's my understanding that Decatur is going to be going through a construction somewhere in the near future, if I'm not mistaken, through our school bond. Is that right? No? Okay. All right, so that's right. Decatur was not included in the bond.
Not this current one, no.
It should have been. Well, that takes care of that question. Thank you. And just to kind of clarify with the radios that we're talking about, I know that in talking with our police officers and some time ago, there would be some dead spots that they would have with their radio spots, if I'm not mistaken. This would address that. Is that not right? Or
inside of Decatur High School, this would address that. Not outside the building, and not in the portables, but you're trying to cover the core buildings that there's a lot of students covering, or a lot of students congregating in. So there are still going to be dead spots for the portables. Even if you go outside, it's likely that you're not going to get a signal. And this is something that's been addressed, and it is being addressed holistically through the PCERN initiative. In Northeast Tacoma, there's a antenna tower site called Indian Hill, and that's going to be built as part of the PCERN project to help augment Federal Way's coverage back from the west side of our city, kind of shooting in. So it's been something that's long-standing. This isn't something that's new. We've been dealing with this for many years, coverage in that area. So this is addressing specifically Decatur High School indoors.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. When my sons went there to Decatur, I couldn't even use my cell phone in the building. I had no reception. But I did have reception in the gym. So with what you're saying, what happens if there's an issue in the gym? How do they contact emergency help?
At this time, it depends on the operations. Perhaps Deputy Chief Sumpter could talk about an operational perspective when it comes to that. But what I know is, even when we walked the building with King County Radio just a couple weeks ago, their portable radios, which are the same ones that we have, there was no coverage for getting out on that. And it does depend on this other carrier that you're with as well. You've got 4 major carriers, and some will cover that area better than others. But it is dark right now, and so that was brought to my attention. I thought this initial when we partnered with Sprint Nextel to build the initial one in 2008, I thought that would cover the school, and then one of the officers said, no, the gym is completely dark, but it's still a dark spot there. So perhaps Chief Sumpter could talk to the operation on how they do it now.
It doesn't work in the gym there.
Right.
We cannot overstate the importance of getting this done. Imagine at the extreme end, certainly there's the daily operational impact where an individual officer who works there full time has no communication with the outside and can't call for help, can't direct incoming assistance. Take it to the extreme though. Let's say there's an active shooter inside that school. Not only can the officer who's on scene not coordinate incoming units, but a commander in the parking lot, a unified commander with the fire department, cannot communicate with officers inside the school. Rescue task forces cannot be coordinated with the command post. It's dark. There's no radio communication. The most expensive piece of equipment on an officer's uniform is useless inside that school.
So what makes a building structure incapable of having radio communication?
Well, in Decatur's instance, it's topography of Federal Way. So you've got a radio site that's trying to cover this area from over past Wild Waves, over by Sequoia Middle School. And that there's a lot of trees between there and Decatur. And Decatur sits in a bowl, basically. And if you don't have line of sight, that's a problem, more or less. And so that's the issue. Now, on a mobile car, if you were able to park a patrol car in the parking lot and queue up your mobile radio, that will work. But again, it's 35 watts versus 3 watts on a portable and a better antenna. And you're not holding it. When you hold the radio, it's on your hip and you're using your microphone, your body's absorbing a lot of that radio frequency. So the portable situation is what we're addressing. The mobile can get out in the parking lot. So if an officer was under distress, they could go, if they could figure out a way to get back to their patrol car and key it up at that point.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess we need to do this as soon as possible.
Yes.
Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Thomas. Out of the 3 possible options to solve this problem, is using the donor site is the most effective, cost-effective option?
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, let me back up. Cost-effective, no. For police coverage, the mobile repeater is the most cost-effective. The problem is it does not assist or address fire or medical or anything else that uses or aid that uses 800 megahertz. So Medic One and fire, if they were in there, their radios would not tune to our mobile repeater. So that's why we ruled it out, because it would be strictly for police, and there would be an additional operational component for police. So it just was not, yes, it's cheap, but it's not practical for this purpose. So, and then building the tower, that's you're talking about a structure that you're building, and it has to be engineered and wind loaded and all that. It's because it needs to go way up above Decatur High School. So that was not going to be something that we could do.
So if we are going to use City Hall as a donor site, will there be a signal delay from the school to this location?
If there is, it's literally milliseconds of delay. It's using, they engineer the system so that I have to have a direct piece of fiber with very little loss between this building and Decatur High School for the system to work. The King County Radio is working very closely with the engineers of the equipment to make sure that this is going to work. And yeah, if there is any delay, it's literally milliseconds.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Duclos, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. I move to authorize the purchase and installation of the Decatur High School DAS from King County Radio Communication Services for a total not to exceed $39,353.70.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passed unanimously. All right, Senior Advisory. Thank you. Advisory Commission. Thomas, great job. Thank you very much. Senior Advisory Commission appointments. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. As I said earlier tonight, we interviewed applicants for the Senior Advisory Commission. This is a new commission. We're very excited about it starting. First of all, we'd like to thank all of those who applied, and we were not able to offer an appointment to everyone at this point, but we do thank you for those who applied. We have positions which expire in 2022, 2021, and 2020. So there are positions for 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year, which is typically how we create a commission. We don't want all the commission members to have their terms expire at one time, because that creates a difficult time in continuing the commission. So I'm going to go ahead and read the names that we appointed. Debbie Harvey will fill a voting position expiring on August 31, 2022. Kevin King will fill a voting position to expire on August 31, 2022. Cheryl Volheim will fill a voting position to expire on August 31, 2022. Hope Elder will fill a voting position to expire on August 31, 2021. Lena Bostic to fill a voting position expiring August 31, 2021. Catherine North to fill a voting position expiring August 31, 2021. Lynette Karasuda to fill a voting position expiring August 31, 2020. Sue Ellebrack to fill a voting position expiring August 31, 2020. Carolyn Ayers to fill a voting position expiring August 31st, 2020. The next three names will be alternate positions. Frank Fields will fill an alternate position expiring August 31, 2022. Dora Leonard to fill an alternate position expiring August 31, 2021. And Richard Kipp to fill an alternate position expiring August 31, 2020. We're very excited about this. Commission and staff will be contacting these folks and getting the first meeting scheduled sometime in September. Thank you very much.
All right. Great, thank you, everyone. All right.
Mayor, we need a motion and a vote.
Okay. All those in favor, actually, was that a motion?
So I move that we appoint these people to these positions.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? I'll discuss, other than we'll just say thank you very much for the hard work. I know that there were 15 people that were, that interviews were done, and I know this is many, many years and a lot of discussion that took place. So great job, council, in getting that done. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'm really excited about this because I know it's something that has been discussed for a couple of years now. And certainly, you know, it can kind of get frustrating on my end because you kind of wish things would go a little faster, but sometimes things take their own process. And so I'm really excited. I want to wish good luck to our new commissioners, or just about commissioners. And I'm just really looking forward to learning, engaging, and working together to provide solutions and just strengthen the lives through so many different ways for senior citizens here in Federal. Thank you.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, matter passed unanimously. All right, now moving on to Diversity Commission appointments. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I move the following appointments to the Diversity Commission: Larissa Lincoln and Ali Haj Haidari, with positions to expire May 31st, 2021.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passed unanimously. All right, now moving on to ordinances. Second reading. Council Bill 763 relating to the imposition of an excise tax on business activities. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 763 relating to the imposition of excise tax on business activities. Ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to an increase of the excise tax upon everyone engaged in the business of collecting solid waste within Federal Way and expanding the definition of solid waste and amending Federal Way Revised Code 310020 and 310040.
All right. Councilmember Copping, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Council reports. Councilmember Duclos.
I think I gave all my reports at the beginning. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes. All right. First, I want to, I don't see John Hutton here. Director Hutton? Okay, Director Hutton's not here. I wanted to do, Mr. Mayor, a shout out to Director Hutton for his department. Of course, all departments do an amazing job, but his is the one that kind of comes to mind at this moment in time. My parents, as you guys know, have moved back into unincorporated King County. And, you know, when we were moving them, I was like, yes, we got 2 more voters. And then it was an interesting way that I found out that, they're an unincorporated King County. So, but my parents went to Telecom Village just this past weekend. And we all know, I think, on the dais here that we do have a good senior programming, and that on various weekends, you have a bus full of senior citizens that are going somewhere in Washington State. Maybe Nevada someday, maybe at Reno, I don't know, Las Vegas, maybe not. But they just had a really nice excursion, and my father, who tends to use a wheelchair at times, Pam, who was the driver, just did a phenomenal job just working with my parents and helping go that extra mile and pushing a wheelchair through Telecom Village. And so just wanted to do a little shout out and just really take the time to say thank you. Certainly wish Director Hutton was here to hear it. So that's that. Next, I also want to give a personal shout out and thank you to Chairman Greg Baruso, Commissioner Julian, I forgot his last name, Julian, and Jessica, and Jerry Lind. I mean, that was your core team that worked a lot on the Flavor of Federal Way Festival. And boy, did they, talk about the difference of last year and this year. It's just phenomenal. And in fact, I see one of our commissioners in here as well. And so everybody was happy, everybody was cheerful, and parking was phenomenal. Everything just was smooth, and just really appreciate everybody's efforts on those, but specifically that core team. And also wanted to kind of give out my shout out to Betty Taylor. I know that we all appreciate the work that Betty Taylor does with National Night Out. This year I was not able to attend because I was heavily into the process of moving, and I think my wife would have been a little bit upset if I had left. So I think for all those that are married, they would probably understand. So I think I made the call, and it's, of course, that was my 3rd anniversary as well. So there you go for that. And so also really excited about the rental inspection program that's continues to be underway. But the rental housing inspection program, there's going to be a community outreach, and there's going to be, just check out my Facebook, or I believe Councilor Jesse Johnson's Facebook. He posted that up on there and on the city website. But there'll be a community outreach for landlords. That'll be September 25th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at City Hall in the Patrick Marr Room. For renters, it'll be September 24th and the 25th from 6 to 7:30 at 2 different locations, Sacagawea Middle School and Illahee Middle School. So we're really excited about the continued study of this issue as we walk towards more further policy conversations, which will end with a vote on what I hope to be a new policy within the city of Federal Way. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will end my report. Thank you.
Councilor Kopech.
Thank you. Want to just kind of really just wanted to review just a few things here. August is actually packed, and we've talked about a lot of the events. But I tell you, I was really impressed the fact that the Town Square Park has really been activated in a substantial way with Blues and Brews. Was that what it was, or was the Rhythm and Blues? No. Rhythm and Brews festival last month, and this month we had the Flavor of Federal Way and National Night Out. Steel Lake, we had a great event, the Kiwanis Salmon Bake. We've already talked about that. But we also have done the summer concert series there. We had Shakespeare in the Park on last month, and we've got tomorrow night, we have the Chrome Molly Classic Rock concert at Steel Lake for the August 14th event. So great, that's a great event. If you have time, always a good time at Steel Lake in the summer at those Summer Sounds concert series events. Also wanted to give a shout out to We Love Our City for their continued efforts at the Blueberry Farm Park. They are going to be having another event this Saturday, the 17th. I believe it starts at 9 o'clock and go to about 12. And again, that's for those of you that haven't been by that park, last year it was a mess. And this year it's looking like a blueberry farm. And again, it's like one of those things. Our Parks Department works very hard, but there's only so much they can do. And the Blueberry Farm Park was one park that they just had to continue to suspend efforts on because they had other things that needed to be taken care of. And that's not, admittedly, not a well-used park, but the community has come together and really transformed that park in a very substantial way. And just really appreciate the leadership of Shelley Pauls in particular, but just the group as a whole of volunteers that come from different churches, from different community groups, and really have worked together to make that park special. So anyway, that's all I've got. But if you want to join them on on Saturday the 17th, show up at the Blueberry Farm Park on 356th at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Chair Copan for allowing me calling in to conduct city business while I was on vacation. Really appreciate that. Also, I want to thank Thomas and Jalen for making that connection possible for me. So really appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly wanted to thank the police officers for National Night Out. I got to go to the Town Square Park as well as actually nearby where I grew up in Federal Way neighborhood, and a couple officers came by and engaged in food and a little karaoke and other fun stuff, activities. So it was great to see them out there, and really liked how they showed up too. Just really kind and welcoming. So thanks again to the department for deploying our officers out across the city. And also just wanted to take the time to really, I think right now it's interesting. The last couple of weeks we've had a lot of sombering national news with gun violence, and so I know that's something that cities across the country are dealing with. But I'm really hoping that sometime in the near future, as a council, we can really sit down together and think about what can we do. I know it's a difficult subject, and I'm not sure exactly what that will look like, but it's just such a interesting time. And I was at a school last week and just seeing some of the fear, I think, around that, especially with schools when there's a lack of support in terms of what could happen in preventing something from happening. So I think as a city, maybe there's something that we can do. And so I'm looking forward to having those conversations.
Great, thank you. Councilor Dawson.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but I'm learning a lot at the conference I'm at. So I went for my job. However, there's some nuggets that I'm takeaways that I have that I would like to share, especially around homelessness and affordable housing. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm looking forward to seeing Susan in a couple of days here in Denver for the Marijuana Summit. So thank you, Thomas and team. A couple of times I accidentally hung up instead of muting. So thank you for putting up with my errors. And with that, I'll end my report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydia. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So the Salmon Bake, just to wrap it up, it was our 63rd. Next year will be, of course, the 64th on the 4th Friday in July. And we served about 800 people. We have been fortunate enough as a club to keep our prices very, very reasonable over the years, and we will promise to continue to do that. And all of the money raised goes back into our community because we serve all the children with scholarships, with the BEG program. We support the BEG program at Federal Way High School, the Key Club does there. And it's just a really neat group of people to work with, and I'm very excited to continue to be in that organization. The Desna Cup is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Sahali Park. I think it's their 12th year, and I remember about 10 years ago, they asked, Leo and Veronica, who are the organizers, asked to meet with me and wanted to know how they could get the word out to the public about what they were doing. And I wasn't on City Council at that point. I was chair of the Diversity Commission and the Arts Commission. And in just these few short years, their festival, because it is a festival, has grown and grown and grown, and it's almost too big for the site. It is an amazing place to be. So especially Saturday, if you have any free time, go to Sahali. Hope you can find a parking spot and see what's going on. They play soccer, they play volleyball, they have some cultural events there, and it's really an awesome experience to be there. This last weekend, my husband and I attended Little Women. It was a play put on by the Rosebud Children's Theater Conservatory, and what was very special about this last weekend was it was their 10th year anniversary. 10 years ago, Holly Rose founded a program to teach children in Federal Way about theater, and she has, in the summertime, classes for children in grade school, and then she has a program for children in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And they put on amazing plays, and when we walked into the theater, they currently use a local church because they don't have a theater that they can perform in. I asked my husband if he'd read the books, the Little Women book, when he was a child, and of course he said no, and I thought, of course he didn't, because he's a boy. But if you remember, Beth, the little sister, dies, and so these students were so good at the play that I was in tears during the play when Beth got sick and when she died. And so if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. You just know that she's going to die, and you know it's going to be sad. And these kids did an amazing job. So congratulations to their 10-year anniversary. This is sponsored by our Arts Commission, which is amazing. And as to what Councilmember Sefa Dawson mentioned, the National Foundation of Women Legislators, of which we're both members, in fact, every elected woman in the country is a member, have invited 30 women to Denver on Thursday and Friday to have a workshop on cannabis as to what their cities and their states are doing. And it'll be a very interesting, packed 2 days. And I'm looking forward to learning as much as I can about what other states and what other cities are doing to address this. So happy August. We'll see you all in September.
All right. And with that, we are adjourned. Great meeting, everyone.